So, you think you can solve the mystery, huh? Well, let's find out together, shall we? Hello, Avatar fans around the world. This is TOONTOWNTRIUMPH, and I'm back with part 4 of what happened to Zuko's mom. Oh, and Happy New Year, guys. 2010. It's a big year. New decade, new surprises. They await. And before I get started here, I just wanted to say that I am so glad that you fans out there are so happy to see me back. Over the past few months, I've been quite busy with school, and it's kind of hard to juggle in between YouTube and schoolwork at the same time, and a bunch of other stuff too that's in the way in between. So anyway, before I get started here, I just wanted to say thank you for you guys for your patience and cooperation. Okay, so enough blah blah blah, here we go. By looking at Avatar from a viewer standpoint, we can say this. Prince OZAI wants to inherit the throne because he found out that his brother Iroh abandoned the siege of Ba Sing Se due to his son Lieutenant's death. Fire Lord AZULA reacts in rage after hearing this and then punishes OZAI. It is unknown what the punishment was, but whatever it is, I know it wasn't good. Afterwards, AZULA tells Zuko his father's gonna kill him in order to feel the pain of losing her firstborn son. Zuko doesn't believe her and calls her a liar. Then later that night, Ursa says her final goodbyes to Zuko and then leaves without a trace. In the end, Ursa is nowhere to be found and AZULA died. Now, how do you like that? Two big events happening in the same night. A coincidence? I think not. Game on. And then it turns into this. My theory. Do you guys remember my old theory back from part 1? My new theory now is nothing, and I mean nothing compared to it. Wanna know why? Because ever since part 1, I kept on finding new clues and new clues and new clues about her whereabouts, and that's why I ended up making parts 2 and part 3. Part 4 is a much, much better and more detailed explanation of what happened to her that night. All I did was just, give 5 scenes from the episode Zuko Alone. And that one episode happened to be filled with clues, but there were other clues from other episodes, which I didn't realize until a couple months ago. Alright, so what did I say back in part 1? My theory was that OZAI and AZULA were right about what they said, which was AZULA's punishment to OZAI, and OZAI was gonna kill Zuko. But when Ursa, which is Zuko's mom, found out about this, she sacrificed herself to save Zuko. That meant OZAI killed Ursa, and then in rage, or whatever, he then turned on AZULA and then killed him. And afterwards, he wrote a death note or a will saying that he will take Iroh's place as the next Fire Lord, because normally it'd be Iroh's birthright because he's the firstborn son, but that would be revoked. Case closed, end of story. Now, it doesn't seem like much, right? Trust me, it really wasn't. But anyway, I definitely have a much better theory this time. It's much more detailed, and it's got a lot better facts. Alright, so enough of that. This is my theory of what I think happened to her that day. Now, for part 1 of my theory, I hypothesized that OZAI and AZULA were working together to ensure that OZAI would become the next Fire Lord. Now, I know you're probably asking, how could I make that assumption? Well, guess where the answer lies. In Zuko Alone. That's right. As OZAI was begging AZULA to have Iroh's birthright revoked, AZULA and Zuko were eavesdropping on the conversation. When AZULA got very furious at OZAI and was about to punish him, Zuko ran like the little coward he is, and AZULA stood by and watched. Now, this whole scene just baffles me. I just don't get it for a second. Look at AZULA's face. She's smiling at her own father being punished by her grandfather. Talking on a personal level here, if I was in her position, and that was my father being punished like that, I would definitely be concerned about his well-being. That grin led me to the assumption that maybe, just maybe, she's acting like this was all planned out from the start. As if she knew this was all gonna eventually happen. Now, for this next part, I want to thank a person named Leia Soleil for this, also known by her YouTube username, HillbillyRocks1122. What she said is that considering the way that AZULA told Zuko to be quiet and that the way that she led him behind that curtain, AZULA would have had a lot of experience of hiding behind curtains. And if she had a lot of experience, then she had to do it more than once. And where else do you think she got that experience from? Her father. Definitely her father. You know, if you take a closer look at Zuko Alone, you can find a lot of stuff about AZULA that her father is a result of. For instance, advanced firebending, the skill of deception, knowing how to lie and get away with it, being an expert of telling the history of the Fire Nation. I mean, like, watch this.
How was it great-grandfather Sozin managed to win the Battle of Hantui?
Great-grandfather won because...
Because even though his army was outnumbered, he cleverly calculated his advantages. The enemy was downwind and there was a drought. Their defenses burned to a crisp in minutes.
Correct, my dear.
Huh? Okay, that was a little out of control. I'm not sure how she managed to know that, but anyway. If Leia and I are correct, and she does have a skill of hiding behind curtains and all that stuff that I mentioned before, I guarantee you, he and Azula are working together. But then why would OZAI teach Azula how to hide behind curtains? Here's an idea. Perhaps because of her feminine charm, OZAI could have used her as a pawn to spy on Azula's important meetings. So maybe the whole thing was just about personal gain. And, you know, who knows? This could have been going on since she was born, for God's sakes. Zuko even said it in the Siege of the North Part 2. He said that she was born lucky, and then he was lucky to be born. There's also another spot in the episode where you see Azula's grin, and that spot is right when OZAI is crowned Fire Lord. Actually, now that you mention it, there's a spot in the series where she actually says she's working together with OZAI. Well, you wanted proof? There's your proof. So perhaps it could be true. After all these years, they played it out step by step. Now, I know I just tossed a lot of information in your face, and I apologize that my speeches are so long and annoying, but I assure you, these facts are golden. I definitely am getting somewhere with this. And if you guys have any questions, anything, please personal message me via YouTube by going on a TOONTOWNTRIUMPH. Please don't put any of your questions or comments on the video if you can, please, because how YouTube works is they only let me see a few comments at a time on my little inbox thing on the top of the page. So please, if you can, send me a message, that being a personal message. Alright? Thank you. So to wrap that all up, for part 1 of my theory, I definitely think that Azula and OZAI are working together on this, without a doubt. Alright, so that's it for part 1. I again thank you for being so patient. I'm almost done. Just give me one more second to wrap things up here. Now, I can make an assumption that about half of you who watch this video right now are saying, like, what does this have to do with Zuko's mom? Well, if you watched my previous video, part 1, I said that Azula and Zuko are two main suspects in the whereabouts of Zuko's mom. If that part is true, and most likely it is, I'm going to look at character traits when they're together, Azula and Ozai. Traits like, I don't know, facial expression, tone of voice, word usage, and such and such. So anyway, again, if you guys have any questions, please contact me through YouTube or through other stuff, like for instance Skype. My username is TOONTOWNTRIUMPH, or you can contact me through Facebook or anything else if you can. And also make sure to stay tuned for my second episode of part 4, which is going to be my second theory of what happened to her. There's a lot more. I know. It's going to be big. Alright, thanks a lot, guys. I'll talk to you later. Adios.